Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be talking about the best way to start your sadhana, because I've kind of realized, looking on all that I know, a lot of the paths in Sanatan Dharma require a guru, and that's something that very rare people actually get. It's very rare for a person to find an actual bona fide guru, which is why there are so many fake gurus just running around, because there's a demand for actual gurus, but not every person is destined to get a good guru, right? So I was just wondering, because even in paths like yoga, even in mantra requires initiation. Every single tantric or Vedic mantra requires that you be initiated by a bona fide guru who has actually spent years studying that particular mantra and perfecting it, and ideally acquired siddhi of that mantra as well, right? So there's no compromise on that, but I did find a couple of things that you could do to prepare yourself to start your spiritual journey on your own, so that you don't really have to wait for a guru to get your journey started. Because ideally what happens is you start your journey, and on your path you raise your quality, you improve as a person, you improve as a sadhaka, and as a result of that you end up meeting your guru, right? That's the goal. That's what happens ideally when you start your process. So I'm just going to be going over a couple of things that you can do. So in short, what do you do if you don't have a guru and you want to start your spiritual journey? The best way, according to Shastra, is to start by chanting the Nama mantra of Ganapati. Okay, now obviously there are two questions that rise up as a result of my statement. One is why Ganapati, and two is why Nama mantras. Okay, so let's tackle the first part of the question first. Why Ganapati? In our Shastras, Ganapati is known both as Vignaharta as well as Vignakarta, right? So he is the person who destroys obstacles as well as the person who creates obstacles. Generally, it's a practice in Sanatan Dharma that no matter what undertaking you're doing, whether it's material or spiritual, you start the practice with praying to Ganapati. For example, every single homa always begins with the Ganapati homa, right? Every single, even if you're doing something like a Satyanarayana puja or something like that, there is still a prayer to Ganapati at the very beginning, and then you go on to the other associated pujas. So there's this practice, there's this cultural norm that Ganapati is worshipped first before starting anything else. And I think in one of the podcasts with Ranveer, the Ranveer show TRS, Rajarshi Nandi even speaks about this. He mentions that even when you're going to start doing sadhana of Ganapati himself, you still start with a prayer to Ganapati saying, I'm going to be doing your sadhana, please ensure that there are no blocks. Okay, so this is the reason. I'm sure there's a specific reason as to why Ganapati is worshipped. I think there's a story, I'm not sure about this, but I'm gonna have to check it up. I'll leave a comment in the description. But something about when Ganesha was killed and brought back to life by Shiva, he made a promise that he would be propitiated first before any of the other devatas. So that's probably one of the reasons why Ganesha is still worshipped first. Okay, and now for the second reason, why did I say start with Nama mantra? Now the reason for this are very simple. One is, there's this line in the Srimad Bhagavatam that says, Kalir dosha nidhi rajan asti heko mahan gunaha kirtinad eva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. Now the idea behind that is, they're actually talking about the Kaliyuga, and they're saying that though the Kaliyuga is full of faults and full of issues, and it's a very dark time to be alive in, there is still one really good thing about the Kaliyuga, and that is that just chanting the name, and that is Kirtina Deva Krishna, just chanting the name of Krishna, but we can expand it to the name of all gods. Chanting the name of all gods itself is enough to take us towards liberation. So basically the crux of that particular verse is saying that even chanting the name of a god is a wonderful spiritual practice during the Kali Yuga. So despite the fact that we're living in one of the darkest ages and all of that nonsense, it is still the best time to do spiritual practice, because all it requires from you is that effort of chanting a name and you get a huge benefit. So that's the idea, and that's why chanting Nama mantras is really good. That's why chanting names of the Lord is really good in and of itself. Taking it a step further, Nama mantra does not require initiation, you're just chanting the name. So, and the reason for mantras specifically is found in the Bhagavad Gita. So in chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about Vibhuti Yoga, his glories. And one of the things that he mentions is yajna anam japa yajnosmi. So traditionally, not traditionally, but from the West, from the Western perspective, yajna has been translated as sacrifice, the fire sacrifice. But that's not a really good way to look at it, because the reason it was translated as sacrifice is because, the priests were pouring ghee and they were putting grains and there were a lot of things that were being offered into the fire. But yajna nam japa yajnosmi. Among all of the yajnas, among all of the spiritual practices, I am japa. So japa is the repetition of a name or a mantra. So the best spiritual practice, according to the Bhagavad Gita, is japa. And since most mantras require initiation, therefore you can start with nama japa, which does not require initiation, and you can just pick up a name from a book and you can start chanting it. For example, since I mentioned you can start with Ganesha, one really simple spiritual practice is the Nama mantra of Ganesha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha. Now, that itself is something that you can do for years, right? Because even Rajarshi Nandi has come out and spoken about Nama Japa. He's been pushing for the Nama Japa of Bhairava for a really long time now. Ever since he first appeared on the Ranveer show, he's been talking about Bhairava Nama Japa, and there's been this awakening of Bhairava, and there's also been a similar awakening in spirituality at the same time. That's a simple mantra that you can get started with, Om Ganeshaya Namaha. Now, a few things that you can keep in mind while doing this particular thing, because this is a sadhana, it's a spiritual practice. It is designed to take you towards the final goal, which is moksha. But the thing about Ganapati is that he also gives material benefits, and that's one of the reasons that he's a really good deity to worship, particularly in the Kaliyuga, along with Devi. These Devi and Ganesha are supposed to be the best deities to worship during the Kaliyuga. Anyway, getting back to sadhana. So a couple of things that you can do before your sadhana is, like, you could have a bath, or if time doesn't permit, you could wash your hands, legs, face, etc. Cleanliness is really important. Look up the yama niyama of yoga. Those are basic things that any spiritual aspirant should be following. And one of them is shaucha, which is cleanliness. Okay? So, have a bath or wash yourself. Wear clean clothes. Ideally, if you have something Indian, like learn to wear a panche and all that, that's really good. But that's what the traditional aspect is, right? You wear traditional clothes and you do traditional things like doing japa. Then you can sit facing the east. This is just a practice that I've adopted from the Sandhya Vandan, because I face whichever side the sun is at that particular time. So I face the east in the morning and the west in the afternoon and the evening. Sit facing the east and you can start chanting the mantra. Now, one of the best ways to keep track of how many mantras you've chanted is by buying a mala. You can buy a Rudraksh or a Tulasi mala. They're easily available either online, or if there's an ISKCON near you, I would highly recommend you go get the Japa mala, as well as their Gomukhi bags, which prevents the mala from touching the ground. Chant the mantra, Om Ganeshaya Namah. Try to keep your mind on the mantra itself, and now you have to keep in mind that you have to chant this particular mantra for years, right? Spiritual practices are supposed to be maintained over not just one lifetime, over multiple lifetimes. And this is just like a basic beginner practice that anyone can do, and that will definitely have some sort of benefit. The entire idea is that by doing Devata Upasana, by doing mantra japa, you're increasing your punya karma, specifically you're reducing your devaruna. So you should be practicing this for years. Ideally, spiritual practices are something that's continued over lifetimes, because this is a very common tenet, reincarnation. The only reason you're inclined to do a spiritual practice in this particular lifetime is because you've had that samskara from some previous lifetime. So you've done some good deeds in some previous life, which is why your mind is attuned towards doing sadhana. And a couple of things to remember is not to get discouraged, right? 3 years of consistent daily practice is like getting started. It's like entering nursery. Rajashri Nandi has said this. 12 years of chanting a mantra continuously without breaks in between, unless you fall sick or something, is getting somewhere serious, right? And I say this again not to discourage you. It takes time. You have to chant mantras for an inordinately long period of time. Otherwise, everybody would be a great Mahasiddha, right? And that's not what the case is, right? You have to put in the time and effort required to become great. And this applies to sadhana as well. But the whole point of sadhana is that you're not trying to become great, you're trying to transform yourself. And in Tantra, the end goal is to become one with the deity. Complete dissolution of the ego and all of that stuff. But we're getting a little ahead. Just remember to chant every day, be regular, be punctual, try to maintain chanting at the same time every single day, at the same place as well. There is no substitute to daily practice. There is no shortcut. You have to do the work. Okay? And another thing to keep in mind is to be humble and not expect too much, right? You're not a Mahasiddha. It's not like in 2 days of chanting you're going to have some intense Kundalini experience and you become enlightened. That's not the case. You've got to put in the time for years, for decades, before you start seeing tangible results, right? And the whole process requires a great deal of shraddha, of faith. And like I'm not just saying this to like coddle you, but any amount of effort you put in will not be wasted. Krishna says this in the Gita as well. Like a person who has put in effort in a particular lifetime will eventually get back to that practice in another lifetime if they abandon it or if they don't reach the final goal in their current lifetime. So don't have like really high expectations. You're not a Mahasiddha, you're not some great Punya Bhagyavan who has come to earth, and you're not some Rishi. You're a normal human being just like me. And the best thing that you can do is continue doing the sadhana on a daily basis. Things will happen, you will start to have experiences, but that's not the point. The point is to transform your personality. And that's the real goal of sadhana. You're moving towards becoming a jnani, a sthita prajna, a person who does not get shaken when the world is against him. You stay steady. That's the eventual goal. Okay, and finally, keep things simple and be consistent. Remember that you're doing this for years. It takes like 5 to 10 minutes to chant like Om Ganesha Nama. It definitely takes less than 5 to 10 minutes to chant like 108 times, right? So the investment that I'm asking you to make is about like 5 to 10 minutes of your daily routine into a particular practice that will start paying like incredible dividends in a certain amount of time. I'm not saying that you should be expecting results, right? You should be doing all of this with Ishwara Prasad Buddhi. You should do this without any expectation. That's the best attitude to have as an upasaka, as a sadhaka. But the ideal result is transformation in your personality. That's the only real metric of change. Okay. And remember, like I've been on this path for 14 years. I still feel like a beginner at times. And that's part of the whole process. You will feel like you're beginning, but you can also see the progress that you've made if you just keep track of your personality, of who you used to be and who you are now. Okay? So that's about it. I hope this video has convinced you to start doing a small sadhana of Ganesha. I will see you soon. Sarvam Shivamayam.